This morning, the latest on Iran and the weeks of protests that are roiling that country, triggered by the death of a young woman in police custody after she was arrested for not wearing a hijab properly. In an exclusive interview with Vashi Kapelos on Power and Politics, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the world's eyes are now on Iran.
The world is focused on two things. The world is focused on the incredibly courageous women of Iran who are out in the streets virtually every day, speaking out in incredible danger for their basic rights, and that's where our focus is as well.
Protests like these have been happening in the capital of Tehran and in cities around the country almost every day since Mahsa Amini's death. And the Iranian government's crackdown appears to be intensifying. Abby Kugathasan is looking into that story for us from London. Abby, we have women, we have students, we have girls taking part in these protests. What has changed in recent days as a result of them?
Heather, this week marks 40 days since the death of Mahsa Amini, the traditional mourning period in Iran. That was on Wednesday, and demonstrations have intensified. People marched to her gravesite chanting anti-regime slogans, including "We shall topple the dictator." A Norwegian group that monitors rights violations there says security forces were deployed, and they fired shots and tear gas, resulting in more than 50 civilians being injured. There was a heavy police presence in other parts of Iran as well. People tried to mourn 16-year-old Nika Shakarami, who went missing after attending a protest in September, and mourners went to her grave as well. And there's video online showing officers firing tear gas on civilians there, and people there chanting, "We are all Nika, we are ready to fight." And they have been fighting, as we've been saying, and we heard from the U.S. Secretary of State there, Antony Blinken, saying this has been ongoing every single day in recent weeks, and they're doing it despite the great risk to their lives, Heather.
The demonstrations triggered by the death of Mahsa Amini, Abby, but there's become much more to these protests. Tell us about that.
Certainly. As you mentioned, we've seen the videos of Iranian girls shouting down regime officials at their school. We've seen the videos of young women cutting their hair off or simply dancing in public. We've seen an 80-year-old woman remove her hijab in protest. There are so many images of Iranians demanding their basic human rights. Time and time again, they say this is not about the hijab. This is about being able to live freely and do as they wish, to wear what they want and to do what they want. And they're being killed for it. More than 200 people, including 29 children, have lost their lives since Mahsa Amini's death. There have been protests in Iran before, but observers say these are different because they're ongoing. They've brought together different sections of society, and these girls, these university students and grandmas, are the largest threat to the clergy in decades. The regime blames the West for these demonstrations, but every protest, every chant that we've been hearing, woman, life, freedom, is absolutely another loud message to the Iranian officials that these demonstrators are determined to make sure that their voices are heard.
Abby Kugathasan, thank you from London this morning.